The stars looked different that night. Captain Jack Thompson noticed it first from the International Space Station's observation deck. After spending 6 months in space, he knew the star patterns by heart, but something was blocking Orion's belt, something massive and dark. "Houston, are you seeing this?" Jack's voice was steady, masking the tremor of excitement he felt inside. The radio crackled with static before responding. "Negative, Captain. Our instruments are showing some interference. Can you describe what you're seeing?" Before Jack could answer, the dark mass moved. It wasn't just blocking the stars. It was changing shape, unfolding like a flower in the morning sun. The object was easily larger than 3 aircraft carriers placed end to end, its surface gleaming with a metallic sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "Houston, we have a..." Jack paused, choosing his words carefully. "We have a vessel of unknown origin approaching the station." The radio fell silent. In that moment of quiet, soft blue lights began pulsing along the alien ship's hull, creating patterns that reminded Jack of ocean waves. His heart raced as he realized he was witnessing humanity's first contact with an advanced civilization. The ship's movements were precise, deliberate, and graceful, nothing like the clumsy maneuvers of human spacecraft. It positioned itself perfectly parallel to the ISS, close enough that Jack could see intricate details in its hull. The patterns of light shifted from blue to a warm golden color. "Captain Thompson." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, bypassing the radio entirely. It was neither male nor female, yet somehow comforting. "We are the Watchers. We come in peace." Jack's training hadn't prepared him for this. No one's had. Yet somehow he found himself responding with remarkable calm. "I'm Captain Jack Thompson of Earth. We welcome you in peace as well." "We know who you are, Captain. We have known humanity for a very long time." The voice carried a hint of what might have been amusement. "We have watched your species grow, struggle, and evolve. Today, we believe you are ready for the next step." Screens throughout the station came to life, showing images of human history, ancient civilizations, modern cities, scientific achievements, and space exploration. "Your species fascinates us, Captain. You are chaotic, unpredictable, yet remarkably resilient. These qualities make you unique among the civilizations we have encountered." Jack floated closer to the observation window, his eyes fixed on the massive ship. "You've met other civilizations." "Many. We are the guardians of countless species across this galaxy. We share our knowledge with those who prove themselves worthy." The images on the screens changed to show worlds Jack couldn't imagine. Cities that seemed to be made of living crystal, beings of pure energy, and technologies that looked like magic. "And you think we're worthy?" Jack asked, his voice barely a whisper. "That remains to be seen." The golden lights pulsed more intensely. "We offer humanity a chance to join the galactic community, to access knowledge and technology beyond your current understanding. But first, you must pass a test." The screen showed a new image, a strange device that looked like a crown made of flowing liquid metal. "This is what we call the kiss of death. It is our way of sharing knowledge directly with other species. However, no being has ever survived its complete transfer. The neural load is considerable." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. "And you want one of us to try?" "Yes. If a human can survive the kiss, we will share all our knowledge with your species. If not..." The voice paused. "Then humanity will need more time to develop." Within hours, the news of the Watchers' arrival spread across Earth. Governments scrambled to respond, religious leaders sought meaning, and scientists began analyzing every piece of data they could gather. But one question dominated every conversation: who would be chosen to receive the kiss of death? As Jack watched the chaos unfold from his vantage point in space, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. The Watcher's ship remained silent and still, a constant reminder of both the opportunity and the challenge that humanity now faced. The next few days would determine not just one person's fate, but the future of the entire human race. Dr. Tom Miller stood at his kitchen window, watching the sunrise paint the Nevada desert in shades of orange and gold. His coffee had gone cold, forgotten in his hand as he thought about the choice ahead of him. The morning news played quietly in the background, still discussing the Watcher's ship that hung in orbit like a second moon. "You don't have to do this," Mary said from behind him. His wife's voice was steady, but he could hear the fear she was trying to hide. "Let someone else volunteer." Tom turned to face her. 20 years of marriage had taught him to read every line on her face. "You know why it has to be me." He set down his coffee cup and pulled out the brain scan results he'd received yesterday. "The tests don't lie. My neural pattern is different from the others." The scan showed his brain structure, marked with unusual patterns that the scientists couldn't explain. It was these same patterns that had caught the Watchers' attention when they reviewed Earth's medical databases. Out of 7 billion humans, Tom's brain showed the highest compatibility with their technology. But what about Beth? Mary's eyes drifted to their daughter's bedroom door. Their 16-year-old was still asleep, unaware that her father had already made his decision. Before Tom could answer, his phone buzzed. The message was simple: "The car is here." The black SUV that pulled up outside their house was just the first step. Soon, Tom found himself walking through the underground facility that the government had built in just 3 days. Scientists and military personnel moved with urgent purpose, all focused on preparing for the ceremony that would either elevate humanity to the stars or prove they weren't ready. "Dr. Miller," a voice called out. Dr. Jane West, the project's lead scientist, approached with a tablet in her hands. "The latest simulation results are in. Would you like to see them?" Tom nodded, though he already knew what they would show. Every simulation they'd run ended the same way, with death. The kiss of death lived up to its name in every test they could devise. "The neural load is massive," Dr. West explained, showing him the graphs. "It's like trying to download the entire internet into a single human brain in seconds. The fact that you're even willing to try this is remarkable." Tom managed a small smile. Someone has to go first. The rest of the day passed in a blur of final preparations. Medical tests, psychological evaluations, and endless briefings filled every hour. The Watchers had been clear. Once the process began, there would be no stopping it. Either he would survive, or he wouldn't. As evening approached, Tom sat alone in his preparation room. They'd given him an hour to rest before the ceremony. Instead of sleeping, he recorded messages on his tablet, one for Mary, one for Beth, and one for the world, just in case. A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. Beth stood in the doorway, her eyes red from crying. She'd insisted on coming to the facility, despite Mary's objections. "Dad," she said, her voice breaking, "I did some research. The Watchers, they've tried this on 12 other species. None of them survived." Tom patted the seat next to him, and Beth sat down, just like she used to when she was little and needed comfort after a nightmare. "You want to know why I'm still going through with it?" She nodded. "Because sometimes the most important things in life are the ones that seem impossible." He squeezed her hand. "And humans, we have a habit of doing the impossible." The facility's intercom system crackled to life. "Dr. Miller, it's time." Tom stood, straightening his white ceremonial robe. Through the room's small window, he could see the Watcher's ship descending from orbit, its massive form blocking out the stars. In less than an hour, he would either make history or become another failed attempt in the Watcher's long search. As he walked toward the ceremony chamber, Tom felt strangely calm. Whatever happened next would change humanity forever, and he was ready to face it. The ceremony chamber was perfectly round, its walls gleaming with a soft blue light that seemed to pulse in time with Tom's heartbeat. Cameras mounted in every corner broadcast the event to billions of viewers around the world. In the center of the room stood a simple metal chair, surrounded by medical equipment and monitoring devices. The Watcher, known as First Light, appeared without warning or sound. Its form was tall and elegant, wrapped in what looked like flowing silver cloth that moved on its own. Where a face should have been, there was only a smooth pearl-like surface that changed colors as it caught the light. "Dr. Thomas Miller," First Light's voice filled the room. "Are you prepared to receive the kiss?" Tom sat in the chair, his hands gripping the armrests. "I am." Mary and Beth watched from behind protective glass, along with teams of doctors and scientists. The monitoring equipment beeped steadily, showing Tom's vital signs, all normal, despite the extraordinary situation. First Light moved forward, holding something that looked like liquid starlight in its hands. The kiss of death took shape as it moved, a crown of flowing metal that caught and bent light in impossible ways. "In all our years of searching," First Light said, "no species has survived this gift." Their minds shattered under the weight of knowledge. "Are you certain you wish to proceed?" Tom thought of Earth, of humanity's dreams of reaching the stars. He thought of Beth's future, of all the children who looked up at the night sky with wonder. "I'm certain." The crown lowered onto his head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the pain began. It started as a whisper, like ice-cold water trickling through his mind. Within seconds, it became a flood. Tom's back arched, his fingers digging into the chair's armrests. The monitors screamed as his heart rate spiked. "Dad!" Beth's cry was muffled by the glass, but Tom heard it through the roar in his head. Images flashed through his mind faster than thought. Alien worlds, advanced mathematics, technologies beyond human understanding. Each new piece of knowledge brought fresh waves of agony. Previous species had died at this point, their minds unable to handle the transfer. But Tom held on. Hours passed. The medical team watched in amazement as he endured what no other being had survived. His vital signs crashed and recovered repeatedly, but he refused to let go. "Remarkable," First Light observed as the 24th hour approached. "His mind bends, but does not break." By the 48th hour, Tom's nose was bleeding, and his body shook with constant tremors. The knowledge pouring into his mind had become a torrent, threatening to wash away his very identity. But in the chaos, he found something to anchor himself. The sound of Mary humming a lullaby to Beth when she was small, the smell of morning coffee, the feeling of desert wind on his face. These simple human memories became his lifeline. At hour 72, First Light spoke again, its voice carrying a note of what might have been concern. "You may stop now, Dr. Miller. You have already survived longer than any other." Tom's response was barely a whisper. "Not finished yet." The final hours were the hardest. Tom's consciousness expanded beyond anything human, filled with the collected knowledge of countless civilizations. Yet somehow he remained himself, changed but unbroken. At hour 76, the crown lifted from his head. The room fell silent except for the steady beep of the heart monitor. Tom opened his eyes, which now held a faint, silvery glow. "How?" First Light asked, genuine wonder in its voice. "How did you survive?" Tom smiled weakly, blood still trickling from his nose. "Because I had something worth surviving for." His eyes found Mary and Beth behind the glass. "We humans, we don't know how to give up." Then he closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep, his mind processing everything he had gained. But unlike the 12 species before him, his heart continued to beat, strong and steady. The kiss of death had met its match in human resilience. For 21 days, Tom Miller slept in the specially designed medical unit while the world held its breath. The room's walls displayed his brain activity in moving patterns of light, a constant dance of colors that fascinated the Watcher scientists. They had never seen anything like it. Mary barely left his side, reading books aloud or simply talking to him about ordinary things. Beth's school day, the weather, the desert flowers blooming outside. The doctors said Tom might be able to hear her, though they couldn't be sure. His brain patterns would spike whenever she spoke, creating brilliant bursts of color on the walls. On the 22nd morning, everything changed. Tom's eyes opened suddenly, the silver glow in them now a permanent feature. He looked at Mary, who had fallen asleep in the chair beside his bed, and smiled. "The coffee's getting cold," he whispered. Mary jerked awake, tears already forming. "Tom, are you really here?" "Yes." His voice was different now, deeper, with an odd resonance that made the air hum. "Though here has a whole new meaning when you understand quantum mechanics the way I do now." The medical team rushed in, followed by First Light and two other watchers. Their pearl-like faces showed swirling patterns of gold and blue, signs of excitement. Tom now knew, though he couldn't remember how he knew. "Dr. Miller," the lead doctor said, shining a light in his eyes, "can you tell us how you're feeling?" Tom sat up slowly, taking in the room with new awareness. He could see the electrical currents running through the walls, the infrared signatures of everyone present, even the quantum fluctuations in the air itself. "I feel expanded, like my mind has grown beyond its original borders." First Light moved closer, its silver robes rippling. The knowledge transfer was complete, the first successful one in our history. "Can you access the information?" Tom nodded. "All of it. The mathematical principles behind faster-than-light travel, the unified theory of physics, the cure for—" He stopped suddenly, his expression changing. "And I can see what you were planning to." The room grew tense. First Light's face shifted to deep purple, a color Tom now recognized as concern. "Mom." Beth's voice came from the doorway. She had rushed from school when she heard her father was awake. "Dad?" Tom held out his hand to his daughter, his eyes never leaving First Light. "It's okay, Beth. Come here." When she reached him, he hugged her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo, a human anchor in his transformed consciousness. The kiss was more than a test, wasn't it? Tom's voice was calm, but carried a weight of authority that hadn't been there before. "When you gave it to other species, you weren't just sharing knowledge. You were preparing them." First Light's companions moved back slightly. "We should discuss this privately," First Light suggested. "No." Tom's voice echoed with power he didn't know he possessed. "No more secrets. The human race deserves to know the truth." He looked at the cameras in the room's corners, knowing they were still broadcasting. The kiss doesn't just transfer knowledge, it's supposed to transfer consciousness. The Watchers are dying, and they've been searching for new bodies to inhabit. The revelation sent shockwaves through the room. Mary's hand tightened on Tom's arm, while Beth pressed closer to her father's side. "But something went wrong with me, didn't it?" Tom continued. "Instead of replacing my consciousness, the knowledge merged with it. I'm still me, just more than I was before. And that's never happened before, has it?" First Light's face had turned a deep, stormy gray. "No, it hasn't. And we need to understand why." Tom looked at his family, then back at the Watchers. "I already know why. And once I tell everyone, nothing in the galaxy will ever be the same." The world changed in the hours after Tom's revelation. He sat in a hastily arranged meeting room at the facility, facing screens that showed leaders from every major nation. His silver glowing eyes reflected off the polished table as he explained what he had discovered in the vast knowledge now filling his mind. "The Watchers are not just dying," Tom said, his voice carrying that strange new resonance. "They're fading away. Their consciousness is becoming too complex for their physical forms to contain. They've spent thousands of years searching for species that could serve as new vessels." First Light stood in the corner, its pearl-like face now a swirl of deep blues and grays. It made no move to stop Tom's explanation. "Each time they found a promising species," Tom continued, "that would offer the kiss. The knowledge transfer was real, but it was also meant to prepare the host's brain for a complete consciousness transfer. When the host died from the neural overload, a Watcher would download themselves into the empty vessel." Gasps and murmurs filled the screens. One world leader leaned forward. "But you survived." "Yes." Tom stood and walked to the window, looking out at the desert. "Human consciousness is different. Our minds are too chaotic, too adaptable. Instead of being overwritten, my consciousness adapted and merged with the knowledge. I became more than what I was, but I remained myself. Mary, who sat nearby with Beth, spoke up. "Show them what you found about the other species." Tom nodded and pressed his hand to a computer terminal. His new connection to technology let him instantly display files showing 12 different alien races. These were the species that failed the kiss. But they didn't just die. Their bodies were preserved, waiting in stasis on the Watcher's homeworld. "This is true." First Light suddenly spoke. Its voice carried a note of resignation. "We have watched countless civilizations rise and fall. We have guided them, protected them, hoping to find one strong enough to become our new vessels. We are ancient beyond your understanding, and we are tired. But that's not the worst part," Tom said quietly. He brought up new images, massive ships hidden in deep space. They weren't going to wait for volunteers forever. If humanity had failed the test, they planned to take us by force. They have an armada ready. The room erupted in angry shouts and demands for action. Tom raised his hand for silence. The Watchers' plan failed because they didn't understand what makes humans different. Our consciousness isn't just housed in our brains. It's shaped by our connections, our emotions, our messy and chaotic lives. He looked at Mary and Beth. "When the kiss tried to overwrite me, I held on to memories of my family, my life, my humanity. That's what saved me." First Light moved to the center of the room. "You understand now why we must take action. Your survival threatens everything we have worked for millennia to achieve." "No," Tom said firmly. "My survival offers you something you never considered. A third option. Humanity's chaotic nature, the very thing you saw as a flaw, might be the key to your salvation. But first, you have to stop seeing us as vessels and start seeing us as equals." The alien's face shifted through colors rapidly. "The others will not accept this." "They'll have to," Tom replied, "because I've already sent the truth to every awakened species in your empire. Right now, across the galaxy, your subject races are learning what you really planned for them." First Light's form seemed to flicker. "You would risk galactic war." Tom smiled, but there was steel in his expression. "No, I'm preventing one. The choice is yours now. Work with humanity to find a real solution to your people's fate, or face the consequences of your deception." The screens erupted with questions and demands, but Tom kept his eyes on First Light. The future of two species, and perhaps the entire galaxy, hung on what would happen next. The next 3 days shook the galaxy. Tom watched from Earth as the Watcher's empire crumbled, not through violence, but through the simple power of truth. His enhanced mind could now connect to the vast network of alien communications, letting him witness the uprising unfold. "Another system has broken away," he told the emergency council gathered in the underground facility. "The Green Ring colonies have declared independence. That makes 17 civilizations in total." The screens around the room showed scenes from across the galaxy. On hundreds of worlds, species that had lived under Watcher control were rising up, not with weapons, but with demands for freedom and truth. First Light, who had chosen to remain on Earth, watched the reports with its face cycling through colors of distress. Millions of years of order, undone in days. "Not undone," Tom corrected, his silver eyes gleaming. "Transformed. Your people's mistake was thinking that control was the only way to survive." He turned to the council. "We have an opportunity here, but we have to move fast." Mary, who had become humanity's unofficial ambassador to the rebel species, pulled up new data on the main screen. "The Centauri group is asking for Earth's protection. They fear Watcher retaliation." Tom nodded. "And they won't be the last." He pressed his hand to a computer terminal, using his new abilities to bring up a complex star map. "The Watcher's battle fleet is moving. They're splitting into defensive formations around their core worlds." "They're afraid," Beth said from her spot near the door. Since her father's transformation, she'd insisted on being part of these meetings, often seeing things others missed. Not just of losing control, but of dying alone. Tom looked at his daughter with pride. Exactly. Which is why our next move is crucial. He turned to First Light. Your people have a choice to make. The old way is falling apart, but humans can offer you something new, a way to save your consciousness without sacrificing others. First Light's face showed swirls of curious gold. How? Tom smiled and brought up new diagrams on the screens. Because we survived the kiss, we now understand how consciousness truly works. Your people don't need new bodies. You need a new way of existing. Look at what human minds did with your knowledge. We didn't just contain it. We transformed it. We can help you do the same. The room buzzed with excitement as Tom explained his plan. Human scientists, working with their new knowledge, had already begun developing a way to help the Watchers evolve beyond physical form without needing host bodies. It won't be easy, Tom admitted, but it's better than war. As if to emphasize his point, new alerts flashed across the screens. More systems declaring independence, more species looking to Earth for protection. Humanity, the species that had survived the kiss, was becoming a symbol of hope across the galaxy. First Light stood still for a long moment, its face shifting through colors too quickly to follow. Finally, it settled on a deep, peaceful blue. I will speak to my people. Your way, perhaps it is better than our desperation. Tom nodded, then turned back to the council. We need to move quickly. Every species that breaks away from the Watchers will need help, protection, and guidance. Not to control them, but to help them find their own path. And if the other Watchers don't agree? Someone asked. Then we show them why trying to control humanity was their biggest mistake. Tom's voice carried that strange resonance that made the air hum. We're chaotic, unpredictable, and stubborn, but we're also compassionate, creative, and really good at solving impossible problems. He looked around the room, at the humans who had gone from a primitive species to galactic players in less than a month. The galaxy is changing. The age of the Watchers is ending. But if we do this right, something better will take its place. The revolution wasn't fought with weapons, but with hope. And hope, as humanity had proven, was the most powerful force in the universe. 1 year after Tom Miller survived the kiss of death, the galaxy was a very different place. The Great Hall of the newly built Galactic Coalition headquarters in Geneva buzzed with activity as representatives from 30 different species gathered for the historic signing ceremony. Tom stood at the center of it all, his silver eyes taking in the incredible sight. Beings of all shapes and sizes filled the room, some floating in anti-gravity fields, others swimming in specially designed water tanks, and many walking on various numbers of legs. Each had broken free from Watcher control and chosen to join the new alliance. Ready? Mary asked, standing beside him in her formal diplomatic uniform. She had become Earth's lead ambassador, her understanding of both human nature and alien cultures proving invaluable during the transition. Almost, Tom replied, watching as Beth moved through the crowd. His daughter had discovered a gift for xenolinguistics after his transformation, and at 17, she was already helping to build bridges between species. Currently, she was teaching a group of crystalline beings how to do a human high five. First Light appeared beside them, its form now shimmering with a new kind of energy. The solution Tom had proposed was working. The Watchers were slowly transforming into beings of pure consciousness, no longer bound by physical forms or the need for hosts. The last holdouts have agreed to join us, First Light announced, its voice carrying joy instead of the old resignation. The Watcher Empire is officially no more. Tom nodded, remembering the tense negotiations of the past year. Not all Watchers had accepted change easily, but in the end, the promise of evolution proved stronger than the desire for control. And the knowledge temples. The first 3 are operational, First Light confirmed. Any species that wishes to learn can now do so safely, without risk of consciousness override. The kiss of death has become the kiss of knowledge. The ceremony began as the sun reached its peak. One by one, Representatives from each species came forward to sign the coalition charter. The document was Tom's proudest achievement, a set of principles ensuring freedom, mutual support, and peaceful cooperation among all members. A year ago, Tom addressed the gathering, his voice carrying that subtle resonance that still marked him as something more than ordinary human. We stood on the brink of war. The Watchers were desperate to survive, and humanity was their last hope for finding new vessels. He paused, looking at the diverse crowd. But what they found instead was something far more valuable, a reminder that evolution doesn't have to mean destruction. Change doesn't have to come through force. The human spirit, with all its chaos and creativity, showed us a better way. Mary stepped forward, holding a small device that glowed with inner light. Today, we open the first public knowledge temple on Earth. Any being who wishes to learn, to grow, to understand the universe better, can do so safely. The knowledge that once brought death now brings enlightenment. Beth joined them, followed by a group of young aliens from various species. They would be the first class of students to experience the new, modified version of the KISS, one that shared knowledge while preserving and celebrating the unique consciousness of each individual. The age of control is over, Tom concluded. The age of cooperation has begun. As the crowd cheered, Tom looked at his family. Mary's eyes shone with pride, and Beth was already chatting excitedly with her alien friends about their upcoming studies. First light's form pulsed with colors of joy and peace. Outside the hall, Earth's night sky looked different now. Ships from a dozen species moved peacefully through the atmosphere. The old Watcher vessels, once dark and threatening, had been transformed into glowing temples of learning. The kiss of death had failed to find new hosts for the Watchers. Instead, it had sparked something far more powerful, a revolution of hope that transformed not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. Tom Miller, the human who survived the kiss, smiled as he watched the new age dawn. In the end, it wasn't humanity's strength that had changed everything. It was their ability to show others a better way forward. The stars looked different now, but they had never shone brighter.